The new director stood before my entire team and announced that a temporary student could easily perform my duties. After 15 years of protecting the infrastructure, my career was dismissed by a man named Preston. The room became silent as my co-workers stared down in disbelief. I did not say a single word, because I knew a massive corporate disaster was already set in motion. I slowly slid my security badge across the table and walked out without shedding a single tear. Preston immediately turned to a young intern named Chloe and told her that she would take over my daily workflow. Chloe looked absolutely terrified because she had only shadowed me for 2 days. My specialized system was never documented because it only responded to my unique digital keys. As I drove away, my phone vibrated repeatedly with frantic messages from my former colleagues who wondered if the company was completely doomed. I decided to turn off the device and enjoy the quietness of the afternoon. For over a decade, I had been the sole architect maintaining the federal compliance gateway known as Grid 88. The executives assumed it ran itself. When the original software vendors abandoned the platform years ago, the technology chief had a massive panic attack until I wrote a custom patch. I routinely worked until 3 in the morning to ensure we remained compliant with strict government protocols. Management never saw the hours I spent acting as a shield. Now, Preston had casually removed the only safety net protecting state contracts. Once I arrived at my house, I opened my personal laptop to begin a very specific routine. This machine contained exact copies of the administration logs and access tokens that I had collected over the years. I began exporting the compliance history and printing out the final verification receipts with precision. It was not an act of vengeance, but a necessary departure protocol. Later that evening, my telephone displayed an incoming call from corporate headquarters, which I promptly allowed to go straight to voicemail. A representative named Brooke left an anxious message stating that the chief executive officer wanted to speak with me immediately. They were starting to realize that my exit was not authorized. I sipped my drink and smiled because the automated security timers were already ticking. The system was designed to enter an uncustodied state exactly 36 hours after my final login session expired. Once that window closed, the network would automatically reject all synchronization requests and freeze the audit trails. On Monday morning, Preston walked into the office with an arrogant smile, completely oblivious to the digital trap. He gathered the staff and announced that the transition would be simple. A junior engineer named Tyler opened his terminal and searched for the documentation, but he found absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, Chloe was sweating at her desk as the main screen flashed a message indicating that the master token had expired. Preston casually dismissed the warning as standard legacy noise and instructed them to keep pushing forward. He believed that a sophisticated federal matrix could be operated by random clicking. From the comfort of my living room, I authorized the permanent revocation of my administrative credentials. The monitor displayed a warning stating that removing the custodian's signature would initiate a total compliance lockdown. I clicked the confirmation button without hesitation, watching the screen fade into complete darkness as the loop began. The core infrastructure was now running on borrowed time, and nobody inside possessed the password. During the afternoon status meeting, Preston asked his team if they were experiencing smooth sailing with the new assignments. Chloe weakly explained that the terminal was repeatedly rejecting her credentials and demanding a historical signature verification. Preston rolled his eyes and promised to escalate the issue to the technology department. He did not understand that the federal government required a certified signature to validate transactions. By Tuesday morning, the chief technology officer named Garrison received an automated high-priority alert on his computer screen. The message stated that the compliance bridge had failed to synchronize with the central registry for over 20 hours. Garrison stared at the flashing red text in absolute horror because a broken audit trail meant the entire operation was illegal. He ran a trace and discovered the system locked out. Downstairs in the legal department, Brooke noticed that the mandatory quarterly custodial files were completely empty. She immediately called Preston to demand an update on the transition paperwork for the federal accounts. Preston confidently told her that the situation was under control and that they were simply modernizing the older processes. Brooke warned him that the government would halt their operations if a custodian was not registered immediately. Garrison suddenly stormed into the office of Preston without knocking, slamming his laptop onto the desk to show him the failing registry. He shouted that the federal authorities would suspend their primary operating license if the synchronization errors were not resolved. Preston flustered and claimed that they could easily fix the digital keys by using the intern. Garrison looked at him with cold anger, explaining they fired the only cleared individual. While the office descended into absolute chaos, I sat at my kitchen table eating breakfast and reviewing a draft email. The message was addressed to Arthur Vance, my supervisor at the Federal Oversight Agency. I attached a certified document stating that the position of custodian was officially vacant due to my sudden termination. I pressed the send button, delivering the final blow that would legally freeze every single government contract. When Wednesday arrived, a heavy silence blanketed the entire corporate building as employees began to notice the system failures. A major purchase order worth over $1 million was frozen in digital purgatory because there was no valid signature. The Department of Energy sent an urgent message requesting the identity of the current compliance officer. Preston continued to tell the staff that these errors were just temporary glitches. My former colleagues sent me multiple private messages throughout the afternoon, asking if I knew why the network was completely inaccessible. I did not reply to any of them because I was fully enjoying my newfound freedom away from corporate stress. I had spent 15 years protecting that fragile environment, and now it was crumbling under executive arrogance. The managers never understood that the quietest workers hold the roof up. At nearly 8 p.m. that evening, Preston received an emergency phone call from the head of procurement while sitting at home. The procurement director demanded to know why every single government transaction was frozen and rejecting new inputs. Preston logged into his work computer only to be met with a harsh access denied message. The internal tech support team informed him that the master override was permanently disabled years ago. The technician explained that unless Valerie manually restored her token, the entire system would enter a total lockdown the following morning. Preston felt a wave of absolute terror wash over him as he quickly drafted a desperate email to my personal address. He pleaded for my assistance to resolve a minor technical issue. A moment later, a frantic email from Garrison appeared in my inbox, but I left it unanswered. On Thursday morning, Garrison marched into the main conference room where Preston was attempting to calm the panicked staff. Garrison loudly announced that the government had officially suspended their contracts due to unverified system integrity. He looked directly at Preston and demanded to know why he had removed the one person handpicked to protect their revenue. Preston sat in complete silence, realizing that his buzzwords could not save his career. At exactly 9 o'clock, every monitor in the building flashed a red warning indicating that the entire network was permanently locked. The company faced a massive federal investigation, and they had no legal recourse without my physical presence and biometric data. I sat in a quiet local cafe, turned off my cellular device, and opened a fictional book to enjoy the morning. I did not destroy them. I simply allowed their arrogance to bring it down.